Hello everybody, and well, today I'm going to level my criticisms at the liberalist thing that Sargon's doing. Now, before in the last video, I think I was a little bit more defensive of him, but now I'm going to give some criticisms, some constructive criticisms. I'm not going to be a dickhead. So, first and foremost, the whole ego thing, the whole emotional arguments, people saying like it's cringy and stuff, that's not an argument. I'm not interested in saying that. Yeah, whatever, not the best name in the world, who cares? And to be honest, regardless of why Sargon is doing this, at least he's doing it. So there's that. You know, I can't read his mind either, so all I'd really be doing is essentially trying to read his mind and then asserting what is in his mind. So I'm going to go through the lists of principles on the website. I will say what I agree with and what I disagree with, but will be mostly critical. And then maybe criticise some of the actions that Sargon and his mates are doing, because there's some things that they should be perhaps focusing on a bit more. And then I'll give a closing statement on the whole thing. And let's get this started then. So the first on the list is individual rights. Protecting the rights of the individual must be the highest value of society, to foster mutual tolerance and respect towards the cultivation of the dignity of every person. And with this, I really don't have any problems with. That's true. That's, in my opinion, right. Constitutional democracy is the best way for a free citizenry to maintain a state and resist tyranny. And again, I agree with this. Although some people have pointed out, and it's quite a good observation, that, well, you have this liberal society, but what if, on the off chance, a illiberal philosophy, an illiberal political party wants to run for office and take power, and could potentially subvert and overwhelm this society that you've built, a la the Weimar Republic when Hitler took power. And that's a reasonable thing to observe. What do you do about that? Do you prevent them from holding office, or do you not? I'm on the side of let them take office. It's all about how strong your arguments are compared to theirs, and whether or not you can convince the citizenry that your ideas are better than theirs in the long term. Although they also don't tell us exactly how the voting system's going to work. Is it going to be first past the post? Is it going to be alternative voting? Is it going to be proportional representation? We don't really know. But then again, they've not really gotten that far yet. I mean, these are very rudimentary principles, after all. Economic freedom. Property rights that begin with personal self-ownership and private property creates the most productive societies. You know, that's all well and good. That's right. That's correct. That is what a good society needs. Although this has been probably the biggest area of contention from what I've seen, because essentially Sargon has come out, and apparently he has, but I've not really seen his words yet, that they are bake the cake liberals, which, if you don't know what that is, basically a couple of years ago, a gay couple went into a bakery in Colorado and asked for them to bake them a cake for their wedding. The baker refused because, according to his ideology, that was sinful. However, he did say that they could have any other cake or any other product in the bakery, just he couldn't make them that specific cake. So he didn't actually refuse service as such. But it was made out that he did. But he was doing what any normal business owner would do. They might refuse one thing but suggest another thing, or they might accept one thing then recommend another thing. That's basic how you run a business. Now the whole thing is, did he have a right to refuse that or did he not? Now this is a reference towards positive and negative freedoms. A negative freedom is freedom from, whereas a positive one is freedom to. Think about communist dictatorships. They're positive freedom, whereas what we live in, it's negative freedom. It's freedom from. So the whole argument is this. Is it a problem for him, the baker, to refuse the gay couple on the grounds that they're gay to bake a cake for them, even though it's his business and he does have the right to serve anybody he wishes if the law permits that? Or is it the reverse? Is it a problem for them to dictate to him what he can and cannot make for anybody in particular? They're basically saying he doesn't have the right to determine who he wants to serve. Now, according to some of the liberalists, not everybody in the little group or community, I don't know if it's a community yet, has come out in favour of that. I don't think so. But for Sargon and V, allegedly V, they should bake the cake. Well, I disagree with that. I think it's one thing to have this economic freedom and this right to association, yet you're saying that they should bake the cake, so the state should tell them to do that. I disagree with that. An academic agent made a video about this, and he kind of phrased it like a paradox. It's kind of like trying to allow one person's freedom negatively affects the other person's freedom, but I don't really think that's the case. I mean, there's two things you have here. I'm not trying to set up a false dichotomy. This is what I've seen. And it's either you pick the baker's side, allowing him to serve who he wants, when he wants, because it's his business, or the gay couple's side, where a customer has the right to be served by anybody regardless of what they think and who that person they're serving is. And I think if you want that true economic freedom and you want that free association, you kind of have to let the baker, decide who he wants to serve. That's just my opinion. Even though I know he was wrong to do that, but this is business. In this case, I do think most of the times, on average, the market would decide whether or not people would go back to his bakery after they hear about this, because there are things like Yelp, there are things like Google reviews, things like that, where people can complain about this, and that does negatively affect businesses. So in many ways, the market might have us covered on this. It might. Self-reliance. People possess agency and should be treated as such, because treating people like victims becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, no issue with that. Let's move on. Blind justice. Each individual should be governed by the same laws as their peers without arbitrary discrimination and be presumed innocent until proven guilty by a fair trial. Again, nothing wrong with that. We need that desperately. However, I would add that they might not entirely stop bias in the court systems no matter how much they try, because we do technically have blind justice in our systems, but it's pretty clear that judges and courts do not run in that way. And I think if we're going to do that, we're going to have to try and find a way to get these people to act in that way. But I don't know how it's possible, but hopefully they'll think of something. Secularism. Everybody's free to practice their religion or not, as long as it does not interfere with the rights of others. And again, I agree with that. I'm an atheist, I am a secularist, I'm totally down with that. So there we go. Those are the criticisms of some of the principles I have. Hopefully it was fair, hopefully it wasn't too nitpicky. And let's move on to some of the actions that they've been doing and I think where they can improve. So the first thing is this. Don't feed the trolls. Seriously, don't feed the trolls. Don't feed Jim. Don't let him have his day. Just ignore him. You debating him, you look serious. He's framing himself as not being serious, even though I have an inkling that he isn't, but I'll get to all that in the end. Just don't. Ignore him. You're feeding him. You're giving him what he wants. He can make you look like idiots because you're trying to defend yourselves from jokes, essentially. So it makes you look autistic and makes everybody else think that you're taking this very seriously, taking yourself seriously. Even if you're not, even if you think you're responding to criticism, you're actually not. Because he doesn't actually have any real criticism of you other than you're doing this for ego reasons. It's cringy, things like that. He has nothing against it. He has nothing. He's just mocking you. Ignore it or mock him back. That's the two things you could do. And I think it's pointless to bother. Another thing is, Sargon, I know why he does this. He makes, and I think this is a fair point, this is an observation lots of people have made, he writes his videos, he presents his videos as if you already know the information. Essentially, he's not treating you like an idiot. He expects you to know the terms and what he's talking about, because I don't think this is an ego thing either. I think he genuinely tries to treat everybody as if they're the same intelligence as him, or they have the same knowledge, but they don't. And to be fair, on the whole, he's done a good job of explaining these complex issues to laymen, but sometimes, we don't always do that. And I think when it came to the individual rights thing versus the collectivist thing, a lot of that was deliberately misconstrued by a lot of people. However, some people were probably genuinely confused by what he meant, and I think he probably should have explained that properly, like really broke it down to its most simplest fact to try and explain it to people so that they got what he meant, and I think that would have been better. I think people would have taken to it a lot more had he just explained it in layman's terms completely, but, what's done is done, but hopefully he can remember that for the future, because not everybody is as clued in or as smart as him, so he sometimes needs to cater the message to everybody so that everybody can understand it. Now, I wouldn't say this is a criticism because he hasn't done it, but it's a warning in case maybe Sargon and the others in this liberalist thing do attempt this. Don't try to purity spiral. Don't try to force people to join it. I know you're not doing that. I know that you're making it a voluntary thing. Well, it would be voluntary by default anyway, but you're trying to, you're trying to tell people like you don't have to join it, but this is what we're doing, you're free to do it if you want, that's fine. Keep doing that. Because the more people try to make it out like you're like Atheism Plus, which I've not seen any reason why you are like that, the more people try to say you're just purity spiraling people, you're trying to force people to do what you want, they're saying that, and you're acting like you're not doing that, and you're saying that you're not doing that, people are going to be more sympathetic to you because they realise, yeah, these people are lying or are just idiots, because it's clear that Sargon, Scrump and all the others are not forcing us to be a part of this. They're making it very voluntary, and that would be a good thing. I think you should bear that in mind. Here's a criticism. Now, because a lot of people are trolling them and are mocking them and don't have an argument, they're kind of drowning out the people who do have legit criticisms. And these are mainly the alt-right and the libertarians and the ANCAPs. Now, I can understand why you would probably, just hand-wave them away, because a lot of those groups have overlap and they're all engaging in some kind of mockery. But there's some people who have legit criticism, and I think you shouldn't hand-wave them away. You kind of should treat them seriously enough, because if you don't, you're going to look bad. It will look egotistical. It will look like you're being autistic, even though you're not. And I think that's something you should bear in mind. You should try and separate who's just being a troll and who isn't, and just make sure you can make that distinction, that is all. So that's it, everybody. That's all I can think of, but if you've got anything more, just write it down in the comments. And this is going to be my closing statement. Now, you see, in my previous video, I said live and let live. Let Sargon do what he wants to do. Let Jim do what he wants to do. Let the ANCAPs and the alt-right do what they want to do. I think that should be fair enough. I think everybody really is kind of going overboard on this. I think a lot of the, I won't call it outrage, but a lot of the mockery, a lot of the cynicism, a lot of the nihilism, a lot of the bullshit is intentional. They're putting it on because it's fun and easy to do it. It's the cool thing to do now, to mock and attack Sargon. Now, there are times when that is genuine, when there is reason to do that, but in this case, I really don't see anything. Now, let's be honest here. The ego thing, this is my bit, this is what the conclusion really is all about. Sargon has an ego, apparently, and people are reading his mind and asserting things that he hasn't actually expressed. And a lot of people are mocking him. It seems like there's quite a lot of people who are mocking him, they are attacking him, whether they've got legitimate criticism or not. And how is this an egotistical thing from him? How he's responding to that? Because he is talking to these people, he is debating these people in the comment section and on streams. He took Oozaloo into his stream for a reason, because he wanted to hear what Oozaloo had to criticise. Yet, here we are with Jim, on the other hand, getting filleted by YouTubers left, right and centre. I mean, we are seeing it with Andy Warski. Sinatra Says has even done it. Loads of people are filleting Jim. Everybody wants him in their streams. He'll be in their streams. And even if he's not in a stream and never turns up, people want him in. And they're just backing everything he says uncritically. How is that good for his ego? So I have to wonder, with these two different situations these guys seem to be in, whose ego is more likely to be inflated? I'm just wondering. Now, I have to quickly pause the video for this quick momentary edition. Now, another thing is this. Look at the arguments. Look at what the two are saying. Jim is basically saying that he's too cool for this. It's cringy to go out and do some activism in the name of your principles in order to change society, and that is pointless, and that Sargon is doing this for himself, for his ego. Yet when you actually look at what Sargon's actually saying, he says he doesn't want to do this. He'd rather be doing something else, but he's feeling compelled to do it. And what we also see is that he's doing it for his son. He's doing it for his family. He's doing it, well, for other people. Sure, he used an example of his son, but it's not just his son, it's for the whole of society. That's not an ego thing. Egotists are known for one thing. They do it for themselves. They're basically narcissists. They basically can't help but do things for their own self-gratification. What he has expressed is doing things on behalf of others. So I don't understand the whole ego thing from that point of view, because it's pretty clear if you just listen to him and not be obtuse and not twist his words, or just keep on strawmanning him, because that's what Jim was doing, that's a lot of bullshit. It's not true. How can I'm doing this for my son, I'm doing this for other people, how is that egotistical? How is that self-absorbed behaviour? Because that's what an ego is. Anyway, back to the video. And also, this might be a little bit of a conspiracy theory here, but ever since the Kraut thing, Jim has completely flipped on Sargon. It used to be that he didn't really care, or he was friendly and amicable with him, but now it really does seem to come from a deep place of distrust and paranoia. The whole Sargon new thing, that's where all this comes from. He's doing this not because he finds it funny necessarily. I bet he does find it funny to some extent, but it's all part of the criticism. He's got something against Sargon because of the Kraut thing, even though Sargon really wasn't involved in that. He was brought into it by other people to attack him. And this is what it is. This is nothing more than a continuation from Trout and Tea Part 4. And I don't think anybody on his side has even cottoned on to that yet. But that's just my opinion on that. That's probably where it comes from. He just wants to keep on criticising Sargon because he sees something there, even though there really isn't. In the end, we do not know what's going to happen in the future with this movement. I don't know, and you lot criticising him, saying it's going to fail, absolutely. You do not know if it's actually going to fail or succeed. We'll have to wait and see in the next couple of years, because this thing is barely off the ground and people are already trying to stop it from happening, which again makes me wonder, why? It's barely anything. It's not even grassroots yet. There's barely anybody behind it. They're trying to create support for it. They're trying to create a basis for it. It's in its genesis and people are trying to abort it, essentially. We do not know what's going to happen in the future. It might become a rip-roaring success and catapult Sargon into political success and fame and fortune. Maybe it'll bring about this society that he wants so he can go back and make his shitty video games. Or it's going to fail and we'll be back to square one. Or it'll fail and encourage other people to do the same thing, and maybe change will happen then. Maybe somebody who actually knows what they're doing or is more talented can do it. We don't know. Alternatively, maybe this could inspire other people who are criticising him to do their own movements, to go out and do some activism in response to him. So in the end, that's it. It's live and let live, essentially. That's my conclusion. Those are my thoughts on some of the things that have been going on. This will be the last video on it. I'm not making any other videos on this. I'm moving on. And until next time, it's been your boy, and I'll see you later.